Good morning and welcome to West Shore Unitarian Universalist Church. My name's Diane Alcorn and I am the Membership and Engagement Coordinator here. If this is your first time visiting with us, welcome. We're glad you took the time to join us here. If you'd like more information about our church and our worship community, please feel free and send me an email. In the meantime, again, welcome. We're so glad you took the time to join us.
Welcome to West Shore Unitarian Universalist Church, a spiritual community whose hope is audacious and whose vision is for a more equitable and just world for all. My name is Reverend Anthony Makar, Senior Minister of this community, and joining me this morning are Dave Blazer, Music Director, Megan Ross, Director of Religious Education and Engagement, Brian Gardner, Worship Associate, and Christine Salante, who is our worship tech person this morning, making our live stream possible. We are pleased to welcome you to this space, a space which is connecting people in Cleveland and beyond to our welcoming community. There are so many joys in our world, and there's also so much suffering, so many conflicts, not enough compassion. May our worship hour be one in which our joys are magnified and one which brings to each of us the healing and the hope we may be needing today. A special welcome to you if you are a newcomer to our community, gay or straight, cisgender or transgender, whatever your race or ethnicity, you are welcome. Our West Shore regulars would love to greet you and will do so if you indicate on the Facebook chat that you are new or relatively new. If you happen to have any questions or would like to speak with someone about West Shore, our Member and Engagement Coordinator, Diane Alcorn, would love to reach out to, love to chat. Diane's email address is being added to your Facebook chat as we speak. And now, some announcements from Megan.
Good morning. I am so happy to be back here with you today. I have just a few announcements this morning. I'd like to share that at their last meeting, our Board of Trustees permitted groups of up to 20 people to meet here at church. If your group would like to reserve a room, please contact the church office. Masks are required in all common areas of our building, such as hallways and restrooms. The task force on reopening will meet this week to look at current COVID data and make recommendations to our board about possibilities for in-person church this year. The Board of Trustees will meet on August 26th, so you can expect to hear updates at the end of this month. Parents and caregivers are invited to share their thoughts, hopes, and concerns for religious education for children and youth by completing an online survey and participating in one of 2 town halls to be held after the service on August 29th or at 7 p.m. on August 31st. A link to the survey and Zoom links for both of the Zoom town halls were emailed to families, and they can also be found in your e-news. Lastly, I'd like to remind you that the West Shore Day Trippers group has another great outing planned. The group will visit the Ruth Bader Ginsburg exhibit at the Maltz Museum of Jewish History on Wednesday. Please purchase your own ticket ahead of time for the 1:30 entrance, and the group will meet at 12:15 here at the church to carpool. If you have any questions, please contact Diane Alcorn. Thank you.
Every week, we light our chalice, symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith. It is a beautiful reminder that no matter how many jarring events might happen over the course of the week, the gathered community that is West Shore Unitarian Universalist Church is a source of stability and meaning that we can depend on. Please say with me our words, originally inspired by Maya Angelou. This is our chalice. In many separate rooms, we light one flame, flame of passion, flame of compassion, flame of humor, flame of style. We do not accept merely surviving. Let our mission be to thrive. Together, in spirit, we are one. Let us witness to the unity of our spirit by saying together our unison affirmation words. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. El amor es el espíritu de esta iglesia y el servicio su ley. Este es nuestro magnífico convenio, vivir juntos en paz, buscar la verdad en el amor y ayudarnos los unos a los otros.
And so may it be. And now we turn to our time of greeting, where we spotlight the joys and concerns of our lives. This morning we want to lift up the names of senior members of our congregation whose birthdays are in August: Sally Follett, Joan Grace, Joyce Oliver, Ann Osborne, and Linda Sackett. Happy birthday to all of you. Let me add that worship associate Elizabeth Jerenser's mother suffered a debilitating stroke on Friday and is in the hospital. Prayers, healing energy, and well wishes for Elizabeth's mother are welcome. Thank you for holding Elizabeth and her family in your hearts and prayers. Let each of us now say the names of people whom we are holding in our personal thoughts and prayers this morning. Say these names out loud into the space of your room, as if the act of just saying the name were a prayer, which it is. You may even type the name into our West Shore Facebook chat. If you like, I'll pause for a moment as we do this. This has been our greeting time, where we remember that we are not alone in life, but that we are connected in beloved community. Let us feel held by these loving arms. And as Unitarian Universalists, we affirm many images and many words for this love. And one of those words is God. Let's now sing together number 20 in our hymnal, Be Thou My Vision.
Be thou my vision, O God of my heart, not me all else to me, save that thou art. Thou my best thought by day or by night, waking or sleeping, thy presence my light. Be thou my wisdom and thou my true word, I ever with thee and thou with me, God. Thou my soul shelter, thou my high tower, praise thou me heavenward, O power of my power. Riches I need not, nor world's empty praise. Thou my inheritance now and always. Thou and thou only, first in my heart. Sovereign of heaven, my treasure thou art.
Good morning, West Shore. My name is Brian Gardner, he, him, and today is my first experience getting to share a reflection as a new member of the Worship Associate team. This week, I was asked to explore a metaphor for the meaning of life. My first thought was something near and dear to me, vegetable gardening. With a last name like Gardner, it seemed fitting as I grew older to attempt living up to that namesake. And for me, it is deeply rewarding to observe the cycle of life in a growing season, from seed to seedling to a robust flowering plant that eventually bears fruit and continues to keep producing until, at last, the season comes to a close. For each plant, starting out as a seed, its purpose is to grow so that it can live and then live on through the fruit produced. However, one key difference between my life and that of a tomato plant is that my life's meaning isn't predefined end to end in my DNA. Even still, are there lessons that can be drawn from the vegetable garden that could help define life's meaning? One thing that I have noticed this year, in particular, is that our whole garden has become an example of the interdependent web of life. There is a whole ecosystem going on there this year. Perhaps the most obvious, aside from the plants, are the pollinators. Without pollinators, the plants would never be able to bear fruit. A solitary plant bears no fruit. Beyond pollinators, there are a large number of other inhabitants in the garden space. There are snakes that primarily eat the slugs that enjoy eating the leaves of young plants. Ants have built intricate tunnels that help to aerate the soil, which in turn helps the plants to better absorb water and nutrients. There are aphids that come along with the ants, and so in come the wasps and the ladybugs to the rescue, which of course then means spiders join into the fray. I would love to hear David Attenborough narrate the daily drama that occurs in our small backyard ecosystem. So many different types of life, all pursuing different paths, yet all part of a system that leads to the thriving of all involved. And while the meaning of life for all these various life forms is different, they are all deeply connected to the garden itself. A garden that they probably have not seen in its entirety, nor perhaps could they even understand its intent, even if they could see. But do the ants, for example, need to know the gardener's purpose for the garden in order to find fulfillment there? Do they even know they are in a garden, or that there even is a gardener? So, what can this teach me about the meaning of life? Perhaps the most obvious is that just as a vegetable plant is unable to reach the potential of its predetermined life's meaning without other life, pollinators in particular, we too need others in our life to reach our potential. And what that potential is, in my opinion, is up to each of us to discover. The story of creation in the book of Genesis has a garden as the starting place of human life. So what if I took the observation that I made prior about how much of the life inside of the garden is not able to see the entire garden or understand its purpose? And what if I translated that to myself on this amazing planet that is able to sustain life, the earth as the garden of life? In the same way that some vegetables can grow without any human intention or design, did this planetary oasis in the middle of a galaxy inhospitable to life come into existence through unintentional and purely natural mechanics? Or perhaps, was there a gardener that built this space for us? In either case, this space, this planet as a garden, has sufficient resources for both survival and thriving. And like the mini system of the backyard garden, the key to thriving is in working together, even though our own individual journeys and purposes may differ. I'm not sure if I have determined my life's meaning or meanings, but I suspect that it is connected to all of us here today and to the many millions and billions sharing this garden with us. May our mission be not to merely survive, but to thrive.
That's Brian Gardner. Woo! Thank you. Thank you. If we were all here, we'd be just shouting and clapping. And now we turn to our offering. Please consider texting a gift to West Shore. Instructions for how to do that can be found on our website and also on your screen. Thank you for considering a gift this morning. It's only because of your generosity that we can have a spiritual community that, among other things, inspires personal development, inspires leadership. Leadership like that of our worship tech team, leadership like that of our worship associate team, folks who, in my absence these past several weeks, have helped keep West Shore's worship services powerful and provocative. Thanks to them, and thanks to everyone for stepping up so that I might have some needed time away for rest and recuperation. And just as I did a moment ago, I want to acknowledge Brian, who is among us as a worship associate for the first time. Kudos. Kudos to you. Again, you help make this possible. Your gifts help make this possible, and so much more. And this includes the beautiful piece of music we're going to be hearing right now, a piece called Hope by Richard Kingsmore, performed by the brilliant Dave Blaser. carried by the beautiful music that we have just heard, let us go deeper, even deeper, into this meditative time. Take a deep in-breath. Then breathe out all the way. One more time. Close your eyes. Follow the sound of my voice. A moment ago, we sang those hymn words, "Thou my best thought, by day or by night, waking or sleeping, thy presence my light." What is your best thought, by day or by night? What lights your way, waking or sleeping? In this moment, which we make sacred and holy by our intentions, allow this thought to come to you. Allow the light to appear and enlighten you. And with this, we enter the silence. So how do we comprehend this thing called life? How do we wrap our minds around it? Make peace with it in our hearts? Sometimes comedy provides the answer. Many of you may know the great comedian Jerry Seinfeld, and here's something he once had to say on this topic. Life, he says, is truly a roller coaster ride. As we make our passage from youth to adulthood to maturity, sometimes you put your arms up and scream. Sometimes you just hang on to the bar in front of you. But the ride is one thing. I think the most you can hope for at the end of life is that your hair is messed, that you are out of breath, and that you didn't throw up. Life is indeed a roller coaster ride. It's an apt metaphor, especially for these up and down, gut-wrenching, exhausting days of COVID. But consider now an alternate metaphor, equally provocative. I was reminded of this one during my 2 weeks abroad, 6,000 miles away in the small village of Bagyon in the Transylvania region of Romania. I was there with Sil Knudsen, who was leading our small group, together with Barbara Alberton Walker and Rachel Kuhn, my girlfriend. We just got back 3 days ago, early Thursday morning at an ungodly time. We were there visiting our partner church, led by the amazing Reverend Bela Fekete. On a trip like this one, I am not kidding you when I say that most of the blessings that came to me, and there were so many blessings, came to me in a manner that was completely unsought after. I did not know I needed them until the moment they came into my life. Now, part of what we West Shore folks do when we visit our partner church is to help with its summer church camp. This year, it was 20-plus children and youth, all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, as you can see in the picture. The theme was our interconnected web of all existence. And over the course of 2 days, there was singing and storytelling, there were crafts and glitter and face painting, there were all sorts of things. And then, as our way of concluding each day's events, we would all gather in a big circle amid the flowers and the bees in sight of the beautiful Transylvania hills, and we would sing and dance the hokey pokey. You put your right foot in, you put your right foot out, you put your right foot in and you shake it all about. You do the hokey pokey and you turn yourself around. That's what it's all about. Maybe you know how this goes. After the right foot, then it's the left foot, then it's the right hand, and then it's the left hand, and then it's the right side, and then it's the left side, and then it's your nose, and then it's your backside, and then it's your head. And then comes the last verse. You put your whole self in, you put your whole self out, you put your whole self in and you shake it all about. You do the hokey pokey and you turn yourself around. That's what it's all about. The hokey pokey, a song written in the 1940s for the ski crowd at Sun Valley, Idaho, which since then has spread far and wide and has become for some a prime metaphor for life. It certainly became that for me. 6,000 miles away from home. It spoke to me. It reminded me. Life engages all of us. Feet, hands, sides, nose, backside, head. Your whole self busy with doing things in the world. And before you know it, the dance is done. Maybe at the end of the day, all the whys and wherefores will still remain unclear. But one thing is for certain, no one is alone in their dancing. We are dancing the hokey pokey all together. And yes, at times things can feel so serious. Serious things happen in life, indeed. But let's not lose sight of the playfulness and the silliness that is also there. Also a part of the whole thing. That's what it's all about. Now, a moment ago, we heard Brian reflect on gardening as yet another metaphor for life, and that was wonderful. All of these profound ways of looking at the meaning of our days. Life as a garden, life as a roller coaster ride, life as the hokey pokey. But we're not done yet. There are yet other ways of looking at life which I want to dive more deeply into with you this morning, and these ones happen to come from a particular book of great profundity entitled The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. Now, some of you, perhaps many, may know of it. This widely translated international bestseller is an allegorical novel which tells the story of a young Andalusian shepherd named Santiago in his journey to the pyramids of Egypt, a journey provoked by a dream that he keeps on having over and over again, a dream about finding treasure. And of course, the ones who find the treasure are we, the readers, for the insights about life that we encounter in Coelho's book are priceless, especially when they touch on the ideal of the life ideal of balance. Often when people talk about living more meaningfully, they talk about balance. Coelho's book provides major insights into what the ideal of balance actually involves. To begin with, When we talk about balance, what are the extremes being balanced? What specifically are the two ends of the pole? The book explores this through a story that the young shepherd Santiago is told while on his way to Egypt. It's a story within the story. The story Santiago is told is about a shopkeeper who one day sends his son out into the world to learn about the secret of happiness from the wisest man in the world. So the shopkeeper's son goes, eventually to find that wise man, who happens to be in a beautiful castle in the desert. And upon meeting him, the wise man gives the boy a task to wander around his castle and witness all of the wonders. Yet while he does this, he must also carry with him a spoon containing drops of oil, which he must not spill. Look around and wonder, and conserve the drops of oil on the spoon. Do both at the same time. And what do you think happens? Well, what happens is that the poor boy ends up getting so anxious about making a mistake and spilling oil that he misses out on all of the castle's wonders. He misses out on the big picture completely. Can you relate? Yeah. So he goes back to the wise man, and the wise man puts a few more drops of oil on the spoon and sends him out again with the same charge. And eventually the boy returns, and this time, the wonders of the castle that he has seen. But where are the drops of oil? They're gone. If it's not one extreme, it's the other. And this is when the wisest man in all the world says to the shopkeeper's son, the secret of happiness is to see all of the marvels of the world and never to forget the drops of oil in the spoon. So let's unpack this. Balance, according to the wise man, is to do one's duty to each of the opposite poles of human existence. On the one hand, there are the drops of oil. One way we can interpret this is to talk about the details of life. Some say that God is in the details. Others say that that is exactly where the devil happens to be. What is for sure is that it is in the details which we find complexity and richness. A complexity and richness that transcends theories, transcends stereotypes, generalities. Imagine, for example, that you are at the Cleveland Art Museum and you're 7 feet away from a painting. And from that distance, what you will probably see is some kind of shape that you can encompass, that you can recognize. But now imagine yourself closing the distance, and now you are just 2 or 3 inches away, so close that you can actually see the brush strokes, so close that you can actually see bits of color that you could not at all see from 7 feet away. This up close, the experience of the painting is far different than the one you had at a distance. We're also reminded of this by something that Brian said just a moment ago. I mean, to think of the difference between the ant's experience of the garden versus that of Brian's experience, the gardener's experience. This is just one aspect of the drops of oil idea of living in the details. But details also bring something else to mind: responsibility, the things we must do to maintain our households, our lives, the nitty-gritty of vacuuming the floor, washing the clothes, washing dishes, paying bills, taking care of the kids, working, emails, and on ad infinitum. Someone once said, creation is heaven, maintenance hell. Maybe. But without nitty-gritty maintenance, there is no solid foundation upon which to work and to be ongoingly creative. So we got to pay attention to the details. Engage, the nitty-gritty. There is no good life without nitty-gritty. But this is only one pole of human existence. Don't get stuck there. Don't get so stuck in the details that you're not able to grasp the big picture too, the larger shape that all of those smaller details are reaching towards. And don't allow the daily grind to take up all the room in your mind and your heart. Do that, and your fears become paralyzing. Do that, and your attention to detail becomes perfectionistic. Do any of that, and life becomes joyless and dull. Balance it by finding time for rest and retreat. Balance it by making room for wonder, beauty, philosophy, theology, faith. Come to Sunday services here at West Shore. Step back and see your life, see the moment of life right now. See it from the perspective of history. Stop and smell the roses. Eat ice cream before dinner. Do a random act of kindness, expecting nothing in return. At night, when you arrive home, if you happen to be away, don't just go straight into the house. Pause and look up at the stars and feel awe at the wonder of your existence. Go to Transylvania and allow your mind to be blown. The art of living requires alternation between these two poles of human existence, the drops of oil on the spoon and the wonders of the castle. The wonders of the castle help to balance out the drops of oil on the spoon. But you know, too much fixation on the wonders, I need to say, equally bad. It leads to its own kind of suffering. One version is the Peter Pan syndrome of flitting from one idealistic passion to another idealistic passion without ever reaching commitment and settling down. The problem with Peter Pan is that he rejects the nitty-gritty entirely, and all he wants to do is play. All he wants to do is have fun. This is no recipe for a life well lived. But there can also be another version of fixating on the wonders of the castle pole of human existence. This is when people give themselves to a theory or a philosophy so completely and so rigorously that what results is some fundamentalistic approach to living, which essentially runs people over and flattens the complexities and bumps that we encounter in real life, that are there in real life. Fundamentalists of all kinds, religious fundamentalists, political fundamentalists, on, they see only what their favored theory wants them to see, and they ignore or explain away anything that might go contrary to that. Or, these days especially, they tune into their favorite news source, which both reinforces their faith and demonizes others who are different. Any and all of us must be asking ourselves, how we are doing with this, whether we have a tendency towards fundamentalism of some kind in some way. Every one of us must be asking ourselves that. But these days, some of the most egregious examples of fundamentalism in action, as I see it, are people still denying that Biden won the presidential election fairly, or people denying that there was, in fact, an insurrection on January 6th of this year at the Capitol, or people denying the efficacy of mask wearing and vaccinations in dealing with COVID-19. This is egregious. This is terrible. We are just in trouble if we are caught in the extremes, in one extreme or the other. We must engage both poles of human existence at the same time. The drops of oil, which we must carefully carry, and the exceeding wonders of the wise man's castle. It is a question of balance, the art of living, the secret of happiness. But Paulo Coelho's book, The Alchemist, It's not done with the issue of balance. There's more it has to say as it tells the story of Santiago's journey to Egypt to fulfill these strange dreams that he keeps on having. At times, Santiago is best served when he aggressively goes after answers. Other times, what is best is patience and receptivity. The message here is the need to balance these two different styles of discovering meaning in life. This also is part of the art of living. Take a moment now to reflect on patience and receptivity. Perhaps there is no greater articulation of this than what we get from the Romantic poet John Keats and what he calls negative capability. Negative capability is when a person is capable of being in uncertainties, mysteries, doubts, without any irritable reaching after fact and reason. These are Keats's own words, which are magnificent. Yes, it is true. Without a burning desire to know, we would never risk, in the first place, putting ourselves out there in the midst of uncertainties and mysteries and doubts. But to the degree that our fire in the belly, to the degree that our reaching is irritable, meaning is going to evade our grasp. Meaning can be like a wild animal which will flee or fly away instantly if one's approach is not respectful, is too sudden. Desire to know, and yet a capacity for patience. It is yet one more instance of how spirituality is paradoxical. Go back to the story that Santiago hears about, the shopkeeper's son who is sent to learn the secret of happiness from the wisest man in the world. The son is resolved to learn. He does have that fire in the belly. For 40 days now, he finds himself lost in the desert, wandering, but he doesn't give up. And then, when he finds the castle in the desert and enters in, he is directed by a servant to wait his turn. He waits for 2 hours. Finally, when the wise man appears, he has the audacity to say that he doesn't have time right then to explain the secret of happiness, which is when he gives the boy that weird assignment of carrying the drops of spoon while looking for the wonders of the castle. But the boy is game. He doesn't understand it, but he is nevertheless game. He does it, and then he does it again. And we know that in the end, meaning emerges, but only because the boy has been able to unite his great desire to know with a capacity to trust the process. This sort of balance is especially hard to strike, especially hard. For example, we all want to know what the schedule is for resuming face-to-face worship. We are all tired of this virtual-only arrangement. I know I am. We want science to give us the final answers, but science, as a wise person has said, is not the truth. Science is finding the truth. When science changes its opinion, it didn't lie to you, it just learned more. In this time of successive COVID-19 strains, like the Delta variant, we are learning more. Things are changing all the time. Curveballs are flying our way. Stuff happens. And whereas we could be like the boy whose mind is set on learning, and yet he allows himself to flow with his circumstances and see where they take him, often we demand far more control. We want the full solution now. When our circumstances refuse to explain themselves to us, tell us their rhyme and reason, we pitch a fit, or I should say, I pitch a fit. I just struggle with this. I struggle with this. And maybe you struggle along with me. Reminds me of a poem by Billy Collins called Introduction to Poetry. The speaker is clearly a frustrated professor talking about his students, but the speaker could also be God, and the poem that is being referred to our own lives. Here is the poem, Introduction to Poetry. I ask them to take a poem and hold it up to the light, like a color slide, or press an ear against its hive. I say, drop a mouse in and watch him probe his way out, or walk inside the poem's room and feel the walls for the light switch. I want my students to water ski across the surface of a poem, waving at the author's name on the shore. But all that they want to do is tie the poem to a chair with rope and torture a confession out of it. They begin beating it with a hose to find out what it really means. How are you interpreting the poem of your life this morning? Or equally, the poem of our collective congregational life? Are you more like the shopkeeper's boy in the story, in search of meaning, definitely in a strange place, but also able to wait, capable of negative capability, of allowing the meaning to emerge in its own good time? Or are you more like the students in the Billy Collins poem, beating your life up with a hose, trying to torture a confession out of it? The spiritual way is a balanced way, is a paradoxical way. To desire answers and conclusions with all your heart, and yet not to reach for them irritably, trusting that they will come, loving the questions of life, so that someday we will find ourselves living into the answers. There's an old Italian joke that writer Elizabeth Gilbert likes to tell about a poor man who goes to church every day and prays before the statue of a great saint, begging, "Dear saint, please, 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 give me the grace to win the lottery." This lament goes on for months. Finally, the exasperated statue comes to life, looks down at the begging man and says in weary disgust, "My son, please, 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 buy a ticket." What I am saying to all of us today, me too, is that we must buy the ticket. Get on the roller coaster ride. Do the hokey pokey and put your hands in, your feet, your sides, your nose, your backside, your head, and then your whole beautiful self. Cultivate the garden. Carefully carry the drops of oil in the spoon, but look for the wonders of the castle too. Be passionate, but also be receptive to what comes. Do what Keats says right now and in this moment. Place yourself in the field of uncertainty, mystery, and doubt, and do not despair. Allow the world to surprise you. Trust in the life of this community and how it is going to stay strong no matter what, and how we're going to get back to normal somehow. Trust in your own life too. Trust. Trust. Because that's what it's all about. Amen. Let's sing our closing hymn now. Number 108, "My Life Flows On in Endless Song."
My life flows on in endless song above earth's lamentation. I hear the real, though far off hymn that hails a new creation. Through all the tumult and the strife, I hear the music ringing. It sounds an echo in my soul. How can I keep from singing? What though the tempest round me roars, I know the truth it liveth. What though the darkness round me close, songs in the night it giveth. No storm can shake my inmost calm, while to that rock I'm clinging. Since love prevails in heaven and earth, how can I keep from singing? When tyrants tremble as they hear the bells of freedom ringing, when friends rejoice both far and near, how can I keep from singing? To prison cell and dungeon vile, our thoughts to them are winging. When friends by shame are undefiled, how can I keep from singing?
Now bring your chalice close to extinguish it as I extinguish the chalice here. We say these words together. We extinguish our flames, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry with us until we meet again. Let's remember coffee hour today starting at 11:30. It's a special one today, focusing on the possibility of adding an 8th principle to the 7 that we Unitarian Universalists have had for many years now. This is a very big deal for what it means to be Unitarian Universalist. Many UU churches have voted to adopt the 8th principle in advance of the denomination as a whole. And that's something I'd like to see this church consider doing. I encourage you to become a part of this important conversation. Now, for myself, I've been long scheduled to be a part of the new member class, which also starts at 11:30. So I won't be able to be there at the 8th principle conversation, but I'm going to be thinking about all of you. Please join us for that important conversation. Following this, I will be hosting the sermon chat at 12:30. I will see you on Zoom. Now, the benediction words, which come from a prayer that I learned from one of my seminary professors many years ago, which I will never forget. He shared these words with me. He said, "May I act in trust that no matter how flawed my contribution to the world may be, the universe will turn it into some good somehow." Let that be our benediction today. May we act this day and all days in trust that no matter how flawed our contribution to the world may be, the universe will turn it into some good somehow. And so may it be. Ashe and Amen. We'll see you next week, West Shore.